Today, My 5 and Channel 5 have become 5. All the shows you love are still here, and don't worry, there's nothing you need to do or update. You can watch it and stream it. It's all on 5. Now, Jeremy Vine.
No, surely that can't be it. Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter. Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about Channel 5, because guess what? That rebrand, do you remember that rebrand that we've been touting here on the channel for the past, what feels like forever? It's been about half a year. Well, it's finally happened. We're now in March 2025, and that rebrand has taken effect. Channel 5, in terms of that full name, if you like, is no more. Instead, we have just gone to 5. Just the number, not spelled out, just the singular numeral 5. And as I said in the last time I talked about this, I thought this was a perfect opportunity for Channel 5 to have a true and proper rebrand, as in to really shake off the look and the idents they've sort of had from 2016, 2020, all that sort of stuff. This was the first real chance in pretty much a decade to create a brand new image for themselves, one that can really take them forward in this whole streaming era to really achieve the uniformity that they wanted, you know, by bringing Channel 5 and My 5 into this one thing. And I said at the time, if they didn't at least do some sort of revamp with their idents at the very least, or the basic presentation, then they were missing a serious thing here. And well, that moment has finally happened. And what do you think? Because I'll tell you, nothing much has changed at all. Seriously, this is it. And I thought when I saw this, I was like, no, who's going to notice this? Do you know what I mean? The average viewer is not, even the average viewer, right, will notice that, oh, those idents, those things before the programs, they look a little bit different, yeah? They'll notice even that base difference. But this, it's so barely different from the original. How on earth are you meant to distinguish it? It's just, it's disappointing more than anything. Now, I tried to play devil's advocate. I thought, why on earth would they go down this route as opposed to a complete rebrand? And I thought, well, is it possibly because, you know, is it a money-saving thing? Because, you know, obviously commissioning new idents can cost money. Rebranding all your websites, all your socials, all that sort of stuff with a new logo, a new identity, that costs money as well. But considering Channel 5 is owned by Paramount, which, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe they have quite a bit of money, it does surprise me that not even the base effort was done to change this. The other thing I possibly thought of in their favour is that, well, you know, this base logo, this look of 5, right? We've had this since 2016, almost 10 years by now. So the people who watch Channel 5, you know, 9 years is a long time to get accustomed to a certain look, a certain ident, or a certain way things are. I completely understand that, right? Don't get me wrong. That makes complete sense. But I don't know. I think because this change feels so monumental, I'm honestly baffled that they didn't decide to take the plunge with it in the first place. Now, I'm sure some of you would already come to me and say, well, Adam, look at Channel 4 when they just made everything Channel 4, you know, the streaming site and everything. They didn't change the logo. Well, for starters, in 2023, they did introduce new idents, some pretty successful idents, if you ask me, some of the best they've put out in absolute decades. But again, you might say, well, why didn't they change the logo? The logo still remains the same. But keep in mind, that logo, that Channel 4 logo that we all know and love, that has basically remained unchanged since 1982, since the channel's launch over 40 years ago. Yes, the idents have changed. Yes, the presentation has changed. But that logo, the design of that numeral 4, that has remained unchanged for over 40 years. So it makes total sense why Channel 4 wouldn't even bother to mess with it. I mean, it's pretty much the main core of their identity, that symbol, the way that symbol's made up. Whereas Channel 5, again, this version we've seen has only been in place since 2016. 9 years is a long time, but it's not as long as, you know, 42 years like Channel 4 has. So, I mean, if what I'm trying to say is, you know, this logo that Channel 5 introduced when they launched back in 1997, had they never changed that, had we still got this logo over 25 years later, then I'd understand keeping it the same. But to keep this logo that we have here and not change pretty much any aspect about it rather than the main colour just seems a little bit baffling.
This month, My 5 is becoming 5. All the shows you love, all the ones you've yet to discover, all on 5. So just sit back and relax. There's nothing you need to update. We'll take care of everything. Watch it, stream it, It's all on 5.
Now, one key part of this rebrand, aside from, its supposed changed look, was that everything was becoming 5. It was the TV channel, but it was also My 5, which was the streaming, the video on demand service, in the same vein as iPlayer, ITVX, Channel 4, all that sort of stuff. And oddly, when you go on My 5 now, the domain is still channel5.com, so much for taking everything and making it just 5, I guess. So here is the main page of the 5 website. I was about to call it My 5 then. As you can see, like a lot of these video-on-demand services at the top, you've still got a little trailer reel or, a sliding menu of all the big programs that are supposedly being touted on the channel. So, Prime Suspect, for example, Murder Suspect #1, there's a theme here. La Brea, don't know what the hell that is, that looks intense. The Good Wife, and For Her Sins. I don't know much about these. The Castaway, starring Sheridan Smith, very big name there. Prodigal Son, Killer at the Crime Scene, a lot of murder stuff here, and The Vanishing. There's a lot of murder and crime, are you noticing that? But then as you scroll down, from my memory, the last time we looked at My 5, things have remained pretty much unchanged. You've still, like all the streamers do now, like all the video-on-demand services, you've got these rectangular, windows into different shows. They're all under subheadings like All the Drama, Popular Now, Shocking True Crime box sets, Bingeable box sets, World of Wonders, Murders, Crimes and Criminals. Again, that's still there. Oh god, that's still there from last time. From last time I watched it. Noel Edmonds, The Rise and Fall of Mr. Saturday Night. Great program, by the way. Must-see documentaries. You get the drift. This is like any other base streaming site. The only thing making it, I guess, unique is the fact that it is under the 5 branding. So what was touted as this, this big rebrand, this big move forward for Channel 5, I just argue it hasn't really borne the fruit that it promised. I mean, you've got the live TVs at the bottom. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I mean, at the top, yes, there is a heading right there for live TV, but sometimes people bypass that and they expect it like around here, just if they want to jump in. Whacking it at the bottom seems a bit of a strange choice, if you ask me, but you can see the 5 lineup. You've got regular 5, 5 USA, 5 Star, 5 Action, 5 Select, 5 Cops. I believe some of these are like fast channels, aren't they? 5 Police Interceptors, again, more crime. 5 Trucking Hell. Oh god, 5 Crime, 5 A&E, 5 GPs Behind Closed Doors, 5 Yorkshire Vets, Bargain Loving Brits, Dogs Behaving Very Badly, History, some MTV stuff, MTV Catfish, Geordie Shore, Reality, Teen Mom, and Milkshake. Well, it's good that Milkshake has its own, because as its leading children's strand, why wouldn't it? So that is the basic premise. Oh, look, Milkshake also has its own subheading up there. So there you go. If you've got kids, it takes you to this, and you can watch Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol and a whole manner of kids stuff.
It's sunshine all day, every day, with the very best of Milkshake on My 5. Hooray! Milkshakers of all ages can catch up with Milkshake favourites like Paw Patrol and Thomas anytime, anywhere.
I like the sound of that.
Watch it whenever you like on the My 5 app, on your device or your smart TV, on demand.
It's extremely easy. Oh yeah!
So catch up with all your Milkshake favourites on My 5.
So this was the big shiny rebrand that we're talking about, and again, it hardly has made a difference. Let's completely be honest. No one is going to really notice that difference, particularly the average viewer. People like you and me who take an interest in these things, of course we're going to notice it, but yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment, I'm not gonna lie. And going back to the presentation again, like I said before, I thought this would have been a real chance for Channel 5 to reinvent itself in the image that it wants. Now, granted, again, I know it is owned by Paramount, so they'll have a degree of control on this, and how much they actually care about Channel 5 is up for debate. Some say they do a lot, some say they don't at all. But again, think back to 1997. When Channel 5 launched, it aimed to be like the edgier, younger brother of all the other main broadcasters. It was the youngest terrestrial channel. It promised programming that was going to be different, particularly attracting younger audiences. It was going to do things differently. It was going to present things differently. And that lasted for a little while, the first couple of years, and I think that was also reflected in some of the idents as well. But then 5 years in, 2002, they had that complete rebrand, spell out to 5, and they changed their image. But again, look at just some of these clips from 5 back in 97, and particularly some of the idents as well. This was a channel that was going out of its way to make itself seem bold, make it seem very different. And they even discussed that on like the preview program, like with the news, for example. They said they wanted to do that differently. Just take a look at this.
Channel 5 intends to bring you a new kind of news with a distinctly different feel.
Tonight on 5 News. What's different about Channel 5 News is that we've addressed a lot of the problems that many news programmes haven't been facing up to for years, which is principally that a lot of people under 50 are just not watching the news. And that's not because they're not interested in life. They're as interested in health, politics, science, their children's education as anybody else, but they obviously feel that news isn't catering to them, and we're hoping to address that very much by making the news something that lives every night, that breathes, that is not simply a man in a suit sitting behind a desk with a blue background, as you can see here. That's not what we're about. We're about something completely different. We'll still bring people the news, they'll watch our programme and they'll know what's going on, but we're just addressing it in a different way and hopefully making it very watchable for all of those people that are not currently watching news programmes.
News, by its very nature, is exciting. It's new, it's true, it's different, it's dynamic, it's always changing. So news is exciting, and if it's presented in an exciting way, it'll be accessible to more people. We have bulletins on the hour, every hour on Channel 5, and again, that's something different from other news programmes. I'll be presenting the 6 o'clock bulletin, the 7 o'clock bulletin, the 8 o'clock bulletin, and then our main primetime programme at 8:30, which is ostensibly a half-hour show. Now, in that, we're going to have standard reports from locations all over Britain, but also we're going to have guests in studio. I'm going to be interviewing those guests. I'm also going to be interviewing correspondents, and we very much hope that because the studio is the newsroom and the newsroom is the studio, that if something happens like that, then we can cover it like that.
And sought her permission for a dissolution of Parliament and a general election on the 1st of May.
Brace yourselves.
Isn't this all a bit dangerous, Prime Minister? Well, perhaps you get out of the way and it'd be less dangerous.
I think we're going to offer them something they're not going to find anywhere else in British television.
And again, with the idents, they were a bit edgier. They were a bit different to what, the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, different to what they were all showing at the time. And some of them stood out quite well. In fact, they were the subject of one of my very early episodes of the ident review. And here's a little summary from me all those years ago, but considering it's like nearly 7 years now, forgive the bad mic quality.
The 1997 set of Channel 5 idents may not have been the most dynamic or memorable overall, but they still serve as an important piece of history, as each of these attempted to communicate to millions of British viewers just what Channel 5 was all about. And the channel does still exist today, so it must have done something right.
Then, like I said, you had the rebrand in 2002 where they spelled everything out, and the image definitely became softer. It became more generally accessible. It became more like what you were seeing on a lot of the other channels. And even when they rebranded again in 2007, 2008, whenever it was, that image was consolidated further. 2011, you could argue it got distilled even further with the whole red logo. Now, the actual logo at that time I really did like, but when it comes to some of the idents, talking now with a 2025 brain, some of them did appear a bit samey, a bit bland. It felt like a lot of what 2010s television was doing at the time. We were going for a really base approach, like 1 or 2 colours, very bland idents from a lot of channels at that time, which was a real shame to see, don't get me wrong, but that was just the way things were, And then 2016, obviously, when we got the look that we have now. At the time, I thought it was it was wildly different from 2011. It felt more up to date at the time. It felt like a 2016 looking brand, looking channel. I get that. But the fact is, we're nearly 10 years down the line. And whilst this logoing concept still works, and again, I know a lot of people will just associate this with Channel 5 now. They've become very familiar with it. But I definitely thought the time was right to do something completely different. By all means, when you rebrand, by all means, keep it to just 5, like you want to do. 5.com or 5 for the streaming site and the channel. I get that. But to not reinvigorate your logo after all this time, again, major missed opportunity. And what I love as well is on various socials, people were just ripping into this. I mean, Scott Bryan, who you should definitely follow, a great source for just like TV goings on in general. They tweeted, "Is everyone okay?" before pointing out in terms of rebrands that ITV has gone from ITV to ITV1 to ITV, then back to ITV1. UK Gold is even worse, as that's gone from UK TV Gold to GOLD, back to Gold, and then Ewan Gold since it was first launched. I mean, these sorts, and Channel 5 as well. It went from Channel 5 to just the word 5, back to Channel 5, and now 5. It's hilarious. And someone else, apparently, there's just more of these like jokes and memes from socials. One person joked, disappointed they never tried Chanel 5. Really missed an opportunity there. Obviously ripping off the perfume. And then another, let's face it, we'll still call it Channel 5, said someone else. And they're right. A bit like still calling this platform Twitter, or X, formerly Twitter, because single alphanumeric names just don't make sense. And I think there's a great cause where a lot of people would go along with that. So, at the end of the day, is this big touted rebrand from Channel 5 very disappointing? Well, the answer's yes. I mean, you can't tell me anyone who's, like, takes a vague interest in this thing would find this as, like, some grand revelation. I mean, for goodness sake, all they've basically done is change the colour of the main logo. Nothing else is really different. And like I've said and keep saying, this is just a major shame, because after 9 years to undergo this big shift to fall in line with like what Channel 4 are doing and a lot of the other broadcasters where they're consolidating their brands, they're consolidating their image, to just go with this out of everything, I'm sorry, it's lazy. It's a really lazy approach. I mean, time will tell in the future how Channel 5 just does generally going forward, but I mean, I'm sure you can understand this is just such a disappointment. One of the most disappointing rebrands in modern times, I think, in the last few years. I mean, this is more lazy. This is less inspired than the You rebrand for UK TV. And I'm not even joking. And that was pretty questionable at the best of times. But this is just bad. But that's all for this video anyway. If you enjoyed it, leave a like on it. It really helps us out. And I want to know your thoughts on this. Do you agree with me that this is just a really lazy rebrand and a lot more could have been done? Or do you think actually this is really good? A very subtle change, but do you think it's going to help the future of the channel? Do you think it's going to help the future of My5 as well? Let me know all of that in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new as well, because we'd love to have you aboard. But in the meantime, I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Drama and suspense, not to mention flares, polyester and gorgeous boiler suits. It can only be Prisoner.
Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Sean Knock, Dord Khan, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Liam Domain, AJ Mac 200017, Deck, Jen, Traffy, Evan Hart 41 Radio, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Monanel Thurman, John Wakefield, 40-something Manchild, Jerry Ralph, John McLeod, James Wallace, Ben, Kat Hegarty, Stephen Oliver, Tegan, Shadowfiend 180X, Swan Ronson, Adam Gamer, Fonzie Daz, Real Random, and Seraphic Euphoria, our AMTV staff members.